Oh, I have read it.
You
I
did?
edited it.
By the way, I was checking the inventory for your drinks,
Mhm.
as I told you. Would you like for us to try Perrier? Do you want to stay with
No, no,
Perrier?
we'll
No.
stick with her.
Okay, good. Because Perrier also have flavors now.
Right.
And I was gonna try, but if you want to get with
Yeah, I think we're good.
Pellegrino. Okay, cool. Okay, I'll try.
Okay. The southeast U.S. has been ravaged by Hurricane Helene. Millions are without power. Dozens are dead. And all Washington seems to care about is Israel and Ukraine. I'm Ben Swan. This is Truth in Media. Hurricane Helene sweeps through areas of the United States over the weekend. Now the storm has claimed at least 90 lives, with a staggering one-third of those in North Carolina alone. Helene made landfall in Florida's Big Bend region as a Category 4 hurricane, bringing over 10 inches of rain in some areas. And it has, well, it's lost a lot of its punch. The aftermath is far from over. Power restoration is underway, but over 2 million customers are still stuck in dark across Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, and Tennessee. And speaking of Tennessee, the state's National Guard is ironically, or you could even say, tragically, planning a major foreign venture rather than focusing on the destruction. It's okay. Yeah, it's fine with me. It doesn't bother me. Tell me, Demon. Yep. Honestly, when they crop it, you're probably not going to see it anyways. Yeah. Okay. The southeast U.S. has been ravaged by Hurricane Helene. Millions are without power and dozens are dead. And all Washington seems to care about is Israel and Ukraine. I'm Ben Swan. This is Truth in Media. Hurricane Helene sweeps through areas of the United States over the weekend. As of now, that storm has claimed at least 90 lives, with a staggering one-third of those alone in North Carolina. Helene made landfall in Florida's Big Bend region as a Category 4 hurricane, bringing over 10 inches of rain in some areas. And while it's lost a lot of its punch, the aftermath is far from over. Power restoration is underway, but over 2 million customers still stuck in darkness across Florida and Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, and Tennessee. Speaking of Tennessee, though, here's the thing. The state's National Guard is ironically, or you could say tragically, planning a major foreign venture rather than focusing on the destruction in its own backyard. Get this, over 700 soldiers from the Tennessee Army's National Guard, 278th Armored Cavalry Regiment, were dispatched for a year-long deployment to the Middle East, all while Hurricane Helene was rolling in. The operation, dubbed Spartan Shield, aims to bolster partnerships in the region, enhance security, maintain a strong U.S. military presence. So much for the National Guard sticking around and helping out here. Meanwhile, if you thought our political leaders were taking natural disasters seriously, they're not. President Biden spent his weekend at his home relaxing on a Delaware beach while millions were under the threat of massive flooding. Vice President and current nominee for president Kamala Harris was making campaign stops over the weekend. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. For what it's worth, Harris says she's cutting her campaign stop short to head back to Washington to get briefed on the disaster response. But presidential candidate Donald Trump is actually traveling to the impacted areas. He will travel to Valdosta, Georgia, Monday, where at least 17 lives have been lost. To drill down on all this, I'm joined by Hunter Gaylor. He is the managing director of international relations at Wall Street Capital Partners. Program. So, what are your thoughts on this, President Biden, Vice President Harris, and their response so far to Hurricane Helene? My left this way? Really? I literally was here until Saturday. I flew out Saturday and back last night. So yeah. Really? Wow. Yeah. I know. What a waste. Yeah. Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I saw. I heard him that. Yep. Thank you. Close. Correct. He's trying to do it. Why don't they just feed? Is it for his return? Huh? For the purpose of what? Like all they have to do is take that camera and send that camera through the feed, because we're recording everything on this camera. Oh, in order to record the guest? Same thing. They can still record it on the wrong camera. Fernando, why don't you guys just record off this other camera? Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But my audio is running into your camera. Okay, it is going to the board. Okay. Okay. Got it. And you're going to record on card. Okay. Perfect. Yep. Got it. I do not hear Maria. I don't hear anything in my ear. I can hear Hunter when he speaks. I can hear him. I can hear you. Okay, good. We're the only two people who matter if we can hear each other. Yeah, I can hear you. There you go. Yeah, I can hear you. So I think they're just making sure it's routed properly to record it. So. Ready? Okay. Okay. 3, 2. The southeast U.S. has been ravaged by Hurricane Helene. Millions are without power, dozens are dead, and all Washington seems to care about is Israel and Ukraine. I'm Ben Swan, and this is Truth in Media. Hurricane Helene sweeps through areas of the United States over the weekend. As of right now, the storm has claimed at least 90 lives, with a staggering 1/3 of those in North Carolina alone. Helene made landfall in Florida's Big Bend region as a Category 4, bringing in over 10 inches of rain in some areas. And while it has lost a lot of its punch so far, the aftermath is far from over. Power restoration is underway, but over 2 million customers are still stuck in darkness. That's across Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, and Tennessee. And speaking of Tennessee, get this. The state's National Guard is ironically, or you could say tragically, planning a major foreign venture rather than focusing on the destruction in its own backyard. Get this. Over 700 soldiers from the Tennessee Army National Guard's 278th Armored Cavalry Regiment were dispatched for a year-long deployment to the Middle East, all while Hurricane Helene was rolling in. The operation, it's dubbed Spartan Shield. It aims to bolster partnerships in the region, enhance security, and maintain a strong U.S. military presence. So much for the National Guard sticking around and helping people here at home. Well, meanwhile, if you thought our political leaders are taking this natural disaster seriously, they're not. President Biden spent the weekend at his home relaxing on a Delaware beach while millions were under the threat of massive flooding. Vice President and current nominee for president, Kamala Harris, was making campaign stops. Look at this. For what it's worth, Harris says she's cutting her campaign stops short to head back to Washington so she can be briefed on the disaster response. Presidential candidate Donald Trump, he's actually traveling to the impacted areas. He'll travel to Valdosta, Georgia on Monday, where at least 17 lives were lost. So joining me now to drill down on all of this, I'm joined by Hunter Gaylor. He is the founder and managing partner at Spencer Pruitt. Hunter, thanks for being with me. So what are your thoughts on this? You know, President Biden, Vice President Harris, their response so far to Hurricane Helene has seemed kind of nonchalant, to say the least. How do you see it? Yeah, certainly not. Let's talk about some of those numbers because this is a huge problem for Americans, right? Who feel like, in many ways, what you're describing is a theme. It's not a one-off. This is a theme. $8 billion was approved for Ukraine, another $8 billion, I should say, last week, to go on top of the more than $140 billion that was already approved. Another $8 billion last week for Israel. But there's no one looking out for the American people, and these are not wealthy people. These are people in southern Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, as we mentioned, Tennessee, the most vulnerable people in our society who are hit the hardest, and no one seems to have a dollar for them. No one seems to care anything about their plight. Yeah, absolutely. It just seems like if these people were living in Ukraine, our politicians would care. And because they live in places like Tennessee and Georgia, they don't at all. Hunter Gaylor, thanks for speaking up, man. They would. Hunter Gaylor, thanks for speaking up, man. Appreciate you. Well, meanwhile, on the presidential race, we're seeing some new polling drama coming out of Pennsylvania. A Trafalgar Group survey shows that former President Donald Trump is leading Vice President Kamala Harris by just over 2 points. Current numbers show that race 47.5% to 45.3%. Margin of error nearly 3%. And if you thought Pennsylvania was tricky, well, that state has company. Things are equally tight in Michigan, where a state rep there warned last week that Harris might be underwater in her campaign against Trump. So why? Could it be that the honeymoon phase following Kamala Harris's nomination is over? Or could it be this, that Harris, who is the most artificial candidate in presidential history, is being revealed as also one of the most dishonest? A couple of examples for you. This weekend, Harris made a visit to Arizona, trying to polish up her tough-on-immigration image, which she is anything but. Let's be real. Her track record as border czar over the last 4 years is pretty pathetic. Believe it or not, this was her first trip to the border in 3 years. And in that time, at least 12 million people have crossed illegally. Here's the kicker. The Border Patrol union just fired back hard, saying Harris's claim that as VP, she boosted overtime pay for agents, quote, could not be further from the truth. They continue, quote, as with all things border related, she was nowhere to be found when we needed her, end quote. And then over in Pennsylvania, you got to see this story because Harris is finding herself tangled up in yet another scandal, raising questions. Look at this. Did you catch that? It's a recent ad from her campaign featuring two Pennsylvania farmers who switched from Trump to Team Kamala. But hold up, because a new report from Sky News reveals that these farmers are actually actors and longtime Democratic donors, no less. Turns out they were already on her side before the cameras rolled, and they're not even farmers. The whole thing is fake. Just a little ironic for a party that loves to lecture us about the perils of media disinformation, right? This is a growing and constant theme with this campaign. They talk about disinformation, they talk about misinformation, and then they do the very thing that they accuse everyone else of having done. The question for voters is this: if so little in this campaign is real, what would the actual presidency look like? That is our show for today. I'm Ben Swan. You can find us on X at @truth_in_media or at truthinmedia.com. See you tomorrow. Cool. Thank you, guys. Thank you. What's that? All right.
We love him.
Thank you, guys.
Ben. Oh, hi, Peyton.
Oh, hi.
Sorry, I came in. Good, great.
No, it's okay. I can.
Yeah,
I
I
can-
was in one, and I address you guys. Yeah, that way.
You're fine.
I
I
did
can do
this so
that
we
from
can
now
say
on.